at the end of my PhD, I actually saw that my own technology had the potential. So I thought, why instead joining some company or team out there, why don't I actually start something new and continue developing what I've been working on already and see what comes out.
In this episode, I'm talking with Michela Puddu, a multi-award-winning social entrepreneur and business entrepreneur with many years of experience driving innovation and sustainability, and co-founder of the company Haelixa Technology. This is the We Are ETH podcast, and I am Susan Kish, your host. Michela, are you joining me from Zurich, or where are you today?
Yeah, thank you, Susan. Yes, I'm joining from Zurich.
And it sounds like you speak at a lot of events. I saw recordings at TEDx, at the World Economic Forum, all kinds of areas. You enjoy public speaking?
I do, actually. I used to not be very comfortable at the very beginning, but then I did it so often that I started to not only feel comfortable, but also to enjoy that, actually. Yeah.
Fantastic. At TEDx, you told this great story of arriving in Zurich with 2 overstuffed suitcases as part of the origin story. Can you share that story? Because it was just great.
Yeah, that's the beginnings of how I got to also bring this technology into the fashion textile world. I used to be a bit of a compulsive shopping behavior. And I
actually just say you were interested in fashion.
I was interested in fashion and just used to have a lot of clothes. And of course, when you move to a new country, you bring them all with you. And there was this colleague from the group I was going to do my research that he picked me up at the station, and he was shocked at the sight of those 2 huge suitcases that he was supposed to carry. And after that, I started to dig deeper into some of the issues with fashion, with clothes labeling, and got the idea to bring that technology into that world.
How did you come up with the core concept behind Haelixa, this idea that DNA can capture data and through that label it and give you provenance? What is that story?
The idea to use DNA as a label in a way is not new. Rather, what is new is the way how we have made it work in a way that it's more compatible, let's say, with the supply chains and all the conditions. It could be temperature or light exposure, whatever product can be exposed to. So this is rather the innovation. So how we turn it into something that can be applied in a real life, real world scenario. And it was not just my work, but I've been co-developing this technology in a team, including also who became later my co-founder.
So clothes currently are labeled, but they usually just say something like made in Vietnam or made in China. And that's it. Is it possible to get more information about my turtleneck or your sweater? What kind of information is appropriate?
Nowadays, it is definitely possible to gain more information, and our technology does exactly that. Enable to really access reliable information about product origin, but also tangible proof of claims made, which could be organic or recycle and so on.
So, excuse me, I don't know too much about the fashion industry or about how the stuff is made. Is that about the fabric? Is that about where it's shipped from? Is that about who made it? Or what is the information that might be of interest?
I think this can all be of interest. So the whole journey of the garment is of interest, especially if you want to ensure that some sustainability criteria are respected throughout the whole supply chain. But our focus as Haelixa has been mostly tracing materials from the raw stage until the end product. So, for instance, cotton, wool, from the source until essentially the retail level, to again prove origin or prove some sustainability or production claims.
How does this work for DNA? I always think of it as the Helix thing, but is there a website where I can go and I can translate my URL to a DNA?
In a way you can, but the way we do it, it's a bit different. So we assign a unique DNA to a product or to a specific supplier or to a place of origin, depending what's the scope of the traceability, of course, what's the goal to be achieved. And that unique DNA will, throughout the whole journey, be associated with that. So whenever you do a test on the garment or even intermediate products, so yarn, fabric, you can always identify that unique DNA and therefore confirm that specific origin or that specific production claim. The test, it's a bit like...
So is DNA a thing?
DNA it's really a thing. It's really like your kind of... It's like biological DNA that you find in nature, just is produced in a lab and doesn't have a biological function. It's really a unique code that doesn't have any biological meaning, let's say, but serve to identify a product, and it's really embedded in the product. In the case of cotton...
You spray it on?
Exactly.
How do you...
In the case of cotton, for instance, we spray it on, and that stays throughout the whole life cycle of the product.
So like it's an aerosol spray and somehow the DNA is embedded into the water?
It's a liquid, correct.
Spray?
And it's a liquid and that liquid can be sprayed. Most often that's how this is applied.
What do you think about when you buy your clothes? Or let me phrase it slightly differently. What should I be thinking about when I buy my clothes?
It very much depends what you care about and what are your concerns and what's the contribution you want to make to society or the environment. So there are several aspects. Again, some purchases can prevail the environmental factor or other in the social human labor factor. So that of course depends. Generally, if you want to have the least impact, you buy secondhand. That's the most effective way to reduce your impact in any possible way. Otherwise, again, depending on what it is more dear to you, you should look for information. And I would say, as general rule, the more specific is the information, the more reliable it is. So I would really stay away from very generic claims like sustainable t-shirt or some very generic labels, and look for a company that really give accurate and specific information about their supply chain. And typically this company are very well known for that. So I'm not here to advise which brand, but definitely there are a few companies that are very known for their commitment to environment or society, and that really make also good effort in bringing visibility into their operations.
So can I draw a parallel to how I look at my food? I mean, I go to farmers markets. I try to buy things local as much as I can. I read labels as carefully as I can to avoid certain chemicals, although that's really challenging. But I got to say, when I go buy a piece of clothing, they really do not say very much.
Yeah, it's not easy. And sometimes maybe the information you can find on the website. So research maybe upfront the companies and buy there. Or, again, you have the chance to buy local. But again, you should look also what that local means. It depends where you live and what are the practices in the place where you buy them. So this is all very valid.
And should I be skeptical when I read something that says sustainable or organic, or should I feel pretty confident in how those terms are used, or natural, right?
No, you should be very careful. I mean, the most generic, the least confidence you should have. So again, the more specific it is, the better.
First of all, how did you decide I want to go from the lab and writing papers to I'm going to make the real thing, right? I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Because it's not the normal path for a lot of the PhD candidates at the ETH.
I always wanted to do a PhD having then a career in mind that could be in a company. So I always had in mind then to use my knowledge to assist product development or anyway bring technology or research into real life use. And with that in mind, then at the end of my PhD, I actually saw that my own technology had the potential. So I thought, why instead joining some company or team out there, why don't I actually start something new and continue developing what I've been working on already and see what comes out.
Because if I understood the history, it sounds like you actually started it and used many of the ETH programs and awards and incubators along the road.
Yes, I was very lucky to receive a very prestigious grant from the ETH Foundation at the end of my PhD, which really allowed me to translate the initial technological platform into marketable products and services. And that gave us not just the financial support, but also office space, laboratory. So really the needed infrastructure, obviously extremely modern infrastructure, extremely functional to what we needed. And also they needed ecosystem, advisors, coach that could help me developing the new business skills, advice on how to build a successful business plan, business case, and also a network of peers, so other startups, other startup founders with whom I could exchange any challenges, issues, and see how if they faced them, how they solved it, and so on. So a really great ecosystem to incubate technology and bring them to the next stage of development and commercialization.
What was your biggest challenge when you started Haelixa?
I was diving a bit into the unknown, so it was exciting to learn many new things at once, but also a bit scary in the sense that at times I was a bit fearing that I could make mistakes, and therefore, there was a lot of work to really acquire the necessary skills. Sales, marketing, some legal basics, some accounting, and all of that.
Any particular words of wisdom? Let's say let's say I wasn't me, but I was a PhD student in material science at the ETH, and I had a fabulous idea and was just starting to think about leaving and taking the technology and starting a company. What would be 3 words of advice or 3 pieces of advice you'd give them?
I think the most important thing is really to choose well your co-founder, and I would advise to have one. I think it would have been very tough to be alone throughout the whole journey. It's good to be 2 or more to go through really challenging times, because there will surely be some challenging times. And surround yourself of smart people that can help you, or trusted mentors that can suggest how to move forward when you are not sure, and professionals that can really bring the expertise that you lack at the beginning. So that's my advice.
Have a co-founder or 2, and have a great ecosystem of mentors and coaches.
Yeah.
You studied, if I understand, material science in Rome. How did you select the ETH as a place to pursue your doctorate?
For me, it was...
Why move to Zurich? Rome is such a great city to be in.
To be fair and honest, I didn't choose Zurich, but I chose ETH. I chose ETH because it's a world-renowned institute or university. I wanted to do my master thesis in a prestigious university, and therefore I selected ETH Zurich. I remember I applied to get some financial support at the time for the Erasmus scholarship. And at the time, Erasmus was very popular. And I remember the destinations that were very popular were, Spain, Portugal. And I was the only one actually applied for Zurich.
Oh, is that right?
That's correct. So I actually got it, and I had that support to do my master thesis, and I decided to stay because I actually really loved it.
Can you talk to us about advanced technologies for Swiss Textiles, your board membership there?
Yes, Swiss Textile is a role that I took up 2 years ago, essentially, in 2021. And there, essentially, I'm part of the board. So I help setting the strategy, define budgets, and especially my focus is on technology. So giving inputs for what concern the technological developments of the sector. That's why I also chair the technology commission of the association. what is becoming more relevant is rather the aspects of innovation. So not standard textile, not standard apparel, but rather more technical textile or advanced material using textile or advanced technologies.
So high-tech fabrics and high-tech textiles?
Could be technical textile, can also be, workwear, or yes, any other application beyond the more traditional apparel.
The more traditional sectors of high fashion or fast fashion or whatever it's called.
And if you look also at the sector in Switzerland, the new company that are emerging in the field are maybe startup. Of course, there are companies that have a long tradition in Switzerland and that still do manufacturing, and they still have very good reputation, and they're still leader in the market. But the new, let's say, company or initiatives they are forming are more around really innovative products, so startups, or maybe you're familiar with the on-running shoes. And
sure, another ETH spin out,
so this is all very products that are very innovative for some aspects, and therefore allow Switzerland to remain competitive and leader in this sense.
Understood. So one of the other awards that I heard you understood is the European Commission Women Rising Innovator Award.
Yes.
Which sort of brings the topic of your role as a woman founder, a woman researcher, a woman leader in this area. How do you view that, or do you view that as a distinction that you want to really focus on?
I'm very grateful that I received that prize. I was awarded that prize. It gave a lot of visibility to my work, and initiative like that should be more common, let's say, to really bring to light otherwise, in some cases, hidden women figures. But I wouldn't say that I focus on that. I've just been focusing on my work, and I didn't really care that I was the only or one of the few women at the table. I was just focusing on my work, so I didn't particularly use it at my advantage, nor I've seen it as big disadvantage, likely, in my career.
So I also heard that we should congratulate you, and you recently had a child. Can you tell us, a boy, a girl, how many months? Does it sleep through the night? The most important questions.
It's a boy, and
congratulations.
Thank you. And it doesn't sleep too much, but also not too little. I think overall we are very lucky, and it's good as it is. We're very excited.
What's his name?
Leonardo.
Leonardo. Fantastic. I did my thesis back in college on Da Vinci, so I'm a big fan of that name.
Yeah, I wanted to bring an important Italian name into the equation, as he has a Swiss surname, so I thought having both roots in a way in the name would be fun. Has
that changed your view on life at all?
Yeah, for sure. I think what everyone said to me before, that priorities would change. I already see that it comes first, family comes first.
Michela, thank you so much. I'm going to ask you some closing questions, if that's okay, that we often ask our guests. But thank you so much in advance for your time and your honesty.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. So right now, in the 15 minutes that you might have to yourself in a normal day, all right, maybe 5 minutes, what books or podcasts are you reading or listening to?
I unfortunately, since the birth of my child, I didn't manage to read a book.
Let me just say, I totally get that.
So I bought a book just before giving birth, thinking that maternity leave would be a great time to read. I was very naive.
Exactly.
I was very naive, and that didn't happen. I'm not reading much at the moment, but I like novels, so I read a lot of novels. And if there is a strong woman figure in the story, it's better. I find it inspiring and fascinating.
What would be a book or an author that you would recommend? I'm always looking for new stuff to read.
So I recently read Search by Madeline Miller. And
Circe.
Yeah.
Right?
The goddess or the witch, some say, in the Odysseus story.
That was a great book.
Otherwise, I read also the novels inspired by the Florio family. I mention it now because the series just came out on Disney Plus, so maybe most people are familiar with that. But I found actually the book extremely good as well.
So what is the name of the actual book or the author?
The Lions of Sicily, I believe. It's the Florio family. Is this family from Calabria region in Italy that built a business empire in Sicily.
So although you mentioned that you didn't come to the ETH for Zurich, you came for the university, you've obviously chosen to stay here for a while. So what is your favorite place in Zurich?
I love to be close to the water. So was born in Rome, close to the seaside. So that's what I miss. So anything that resembles that is cool. So
which one of the Schwimmbads do you like?
Lake, river, exactly. Bodies are definitely the place where you find me in summer. But I actually love also the botanical garden. In general, in every city I visit, I try to go to have a look at the botanical garden there. And the one in Zurich is really beautiful.
So when you were growing up in Rome and you were a little girl, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I didn't have very clear ideas, I have to say. I never knew what was next. It just came, unfolded very naturally at the right time. But at some point, I was very motivated to become a medical doctor. And I'm glad I did not do that because I get very easy, scared or anyway. I think I would have brought home a lot of patient stories and I wouldn't have coped with that very easily. So I'm glad I didn't do that.
Very cool. Michela, thank you. That was a great conversation. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm Susan Kish, host of the We Are ETH series, telling the story of the alumni and friends of the ETH Zurich, the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology here in Zurich. ETH regularly ranks amongst the top universities in the world with cutting-edge research, science, and people. The people who were there, the people who are there, and for the people who will be there. Please take a moment and subscribe to this podcast and join us on whatever platform you listen. Give us a good rating on Spotify or Apple if you enjoyed today's conversation. And I'd like to close by thanking our producers at ETH Circle and LA Media, and most of all to thank you, our listeners, for joining us.